Welcome and good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Bowling University virtual studio here at the International Bowling Campus in Arlington, Texas. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking some time out of your very, very busy schedule. Very excited today for what we have to share with you. We've got a guest with us today from the United States Bowling Congress, Mr. Mike Larson. Mike.
Hey, Bart.
Great, thanks for being with us here. Mike and I have some things we want to share with you. As just a couple of housekeeping items, Kelly did a great job setting up and letting you know about the questions. We had a great session yesterday. A lot of folks coast to coast from the state associations, local associations, proprietors, owners, managers, league coordinators. We really want this, even though we have a large group today as well, to be interactive. So we want to hear from you. It's important that we get your questions. And not only it's important that we get your questions, it's important that you share your best practices, because I promise you, it happened yesterday. There's somebody here that's going to share something with us that's the best practice that the rest of us, including Mike and I, need to know, need to learn, and need to share. So as best we can in this large environment, we want to make sure that you get an opportunity to ask your questions. So as Kelly mentioned, you can type those in. We're going to make sure that we stop periodically after each of our sections and give you an opportunity to ask those questions, and we'll stop at the end as well. So please don't be afraid to ask those questions as we go forward there. So without further ado, I am going to turn it over to my co-host today, Mr. Mike Larson.
Thanks, Bart. Yeah, just some opening thoughts. You know, it's been a unique month and a half here in the bowling season. 2 months, shoot, it's October 1st. Time has flown really, and this league season has been the most dynamic that we've had ever. Very unique, one like we've never had. We hope to never have one like it. Only one place to go, and that's up. And so we just want to really spend some time with you all today, going over a lot of the things that we've learned and can share with you to help improve our associations and our bowling centers. And so across the country, right, leagues have started flooring. And so we're seeing a higher dropout rate than normal in our early returns of leagues that have been certified on the USBC side with our associations. And so really the question is, now what? You know, what's next for us?
Yeah, excellent, Mike. And in that now what, before we get to the now what, let's spend just a second and talk about where we've been and some things we covered. Some of you maybe joined us for the first time. Maybe you didn't get a chance to participate in our last session. So just as a reminder, for my folks that are joining us that are operators, managers, league coordinators, we got together a few weeks ago and we put together a program for you called Flooring League Bowlers During COVID-19. And just as a reminder, that program is still available on our website, BPAA.com. I'd encourage you to take a peek at that if you haven't already. And I also know, we had this yesterday as well, you know, unfortunately, we still have a few states, California, parts of Oregon, and honestly, you know, New Jersey and Washington and a few states are just under some real, what I would consider draconian measures to try to floor leagues. Maybe you haven't started your leagues yet, okay? This might be something for you to go back and look at. So operators, if you haven't already, go to bpa.com and check out that presentation.
Yeah, and from USBC side of things on bowl.com, we have a resource center there for starting leagues under COVID-19 and in the pandemic. It has all the rule changes that were made, ways that we can adjust league formats and structures and how to do that within league boards of directors, et cetera. Also some best practices for running tournaments within a pandemic that we're in. And so just a bunch of resources for you there. We partnered with BPAA to look at some of the efforts that they were doing back in August and really mimic some of that and provided a webinar to our associations as well. And so that PowerPoint is there too. As we previously were talking about, right, starting leagues. Well, now we've started them. And so we're now wanting to move into a little bit on the next steps of things.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And I just like one last thought on our joint presentations we did there. What I'm really excited about today is we came together and we're doing this one together jointly. If you happen to watch both presentations, the one that Mike mentioned on bowl.com and the one at bpa.com, there'd be a lot of similarities. And while one was tailored more towards associations and folks responsible for the coordination and certification of those leagues, and then of course the operation ones was more operationally based, there's a lot of similarities. But with this one, we're together. We're here at the campus. We've been spending the last 7 to 10 days framing out this program for you today, and we're doing it as a joint presentation here from the campus. So here's what we're going to do. We got 4 topics we want to cover today. We're going to start out with spending some time on identifying those non-returning fall league bowlers, finding out who those folks are that decided for whatever reason not to come back and see us this fall. Then we're going to jump into some national communication programming that we're excited to share with you, and we hope you will be as well after we're finished. And then we also want to get into some local communication partnership that we want to encourage this opportunity, this very unique opportunity for associations and centers to partner together, and we'll get into that as well. And then the final thing we'll share with you today is some local activation best practices, where Mike went out and spoke to some of our top local associations. I had the pleasure and opportunity of speaking with some of our progressive proprietors that are very active in the league space and understanding what they're doing and then bringing that here today to you. And as always, I always tell folks whenever we gather together, the stuff that we're sharing isn't done in an office. It's not done in a vacuum. It is really sharing all the things that are happening around the country that some of you are doing, right? In fact, in our activation space, some of our folks, I even see them on from our league development committee. They were people that were interviewed and shared some of their best practices, and they were really key stakeholders in helping to bring this to market. So we're excited to share this with you. So let's get going here.
Yeah, so for most, league season has begun. As Bart alluded to, a couple of states not quite yet, and they're in those planning stages, and they'll be ready to go soon. But for most of us it has, right? Labor Day has come and gone. We're now seeing those returns, and so sometimes it's very different than it has been in any years past. But some places not so much. For example, bowl a league on Tuesday night. We had the same number of teams as last year. The big difference was we bowled in masks this year, right? But we had a core group of bowlers that were dedicated and still wanted to come out and enjoy the league season. And so we're operating as normal. But we know in some places it's very, very different. So as we're seeing leagues come in from a certification side of things, we are seeing that most of them are down. And so really we're trying to decide what we can do to assist with that. And another note is we are seeing leagues that have delayed their start completely. Some proprietors and leagues have decided to build a short season league on the front side in this fall, but their traditional, if call it a 30-team league, they voted to start in January. And so some of those leagues that we're really trying to focus on getting back in the new year. So now what do we do, right? If you're an association, if you're a center, you're looking at your league structure, you're looking at your Thursday night, and you're saying, man, we're down some teams more than we hoped and expected. We knew the pandemic was going to have an effect, but there was no doubt about it. It's just a change in our world that we couldn't see coming, but we knew it was going to have an impact. So really, we've got to dig in and say, what is there now that we can utilize and learn from, and then communicate with our customers who have not come back yet. So we would be remiss if we didn't provide a little disclaimer, right? I mentioned before, everywhere is different. Here in where we are in Tarrant County in our area, right? Mask is mandated, excuse me. And so leagues are operating under that premise. But other cities, counties, states all over are different from one another. And it also changes regularly. I think here just recently in the last 2 weeks, our capacities went up to 75%. So these things change all the time. And so just a disclaimer that it's always recommended to follow and monitor the guidance of your federal, state, and local government agencies, because they set the policies for how the business can operate. The content that we're going to be sharing today, this is a guide developed based upon, as Bart said, our conversations with associations, with bowling centers, sometimes league officers on how they're orchestrating their leagues. And so really, we're just providing what we've heard so far, but are really excited to hear what more information that you're having success with in your areas as well.
Okay, last setup slide here before we get into the meat here. And because we need to level set what we talked about last time, if you happen to participate in either one of the webinars that either USBC or BPA did. And what we shared with you in our last session was we really had 3 types of people that we were dealing with as we were going into this once in a lifetime, unprecedented fall league kickoff. There was those, what we call the early adopters, those that will bowl no matter what the circumstances were, right? The moment the governor or your local county health officials said it was okay to bowl, they were outside 30 minutes before you open, ready to go. God bless them, and we love them. As an operator, I would tell you the danger is if you set policy based off of those folks' beliefs, it's trouble, and we'll talk about that. So that's kind of our first group. Then there was that second group, and none of them are good or bad, wonderful folks, but they were just those that were not going to bowl no matter what until there's a vaccine. And we shared that the vaccine doesn't necessarily have to be 100% effective. It just has to have an impact, and it has to give us peace of mind. So those that weren't in that comfortable session could feel good about getting out and reconnecting and socializing again. And the largest group are those that were unsure. And those were the folks that weren't sure whether they should follow the early adapters or whether they should be conservative and stay at home until there's a vaccine. And that was the biggest group. And for most of you, if you've started your fall leagues and you're into that kickoff mode, you've been working with those folks. And many of you did a great job in migrating a large number of those over to that bowling again in the fall league season. However, some we weren't able to move, and some had various degrees of success. I can tell you that I've heard numbers of folks that are, I say only, and I use the word only in reference to this particular year, only 10 to 20% down, which normally 10 to 20% down would be catastrophic, but only 10 to 20% down, to unfortunately those that maybe are 40 to 50% down. And wherever you are, right? You can't change that. You can't go back and change history. What we can do is change going forward. So it's important that we understand those three groups. And if your leagues haven't started yet, you've got a bit of a jump. But if they have, just know who those three groups are, because that really leads in to the setup for the next three groups that Mike's going to identify.
Yeah, so now that many of our bowlers have returned, we have the audience now that has not. And so now it's defining that group because we have started. And the one of those groups is the unplugged. They literally don't know that bowling might be back. They don't know that leagues have started and the bowling center is open. They're not on social media. They don't live and breathe bowling like we do. And so they're just not sure. And if their team captain decided, hey, I'm not bowling this year, they might not have even communicated that to their fellow teammates. And those folks just stop going too. Hey, movie theaters aren't open, whatever else isn't open, I guess I'm not bowling. You know, it's just not a thought for them. So there's an untapped group there for sure that they could fall into the I'm ready to come back, but they just need a nudge. We then have the unsafe group still, right? As Bart spoke to, they might not come back until there's a vaccine, and that's okay, right? They're a high risk, whatever the case is, they're not comfortable, they're prerogative, and we still love them for it no matter what, because they've been our customer in the past, and we hope that someday they do come back. Then there's that unsure group, right? They're still kind of meandering. They're figuring out what they want to do, where they want to go, but they need a little confidence from the association, from the center that, hey, this is a safe place for me to go and enjoy the sport again.
All right, thanks, Mike. I love Mike's definitions there. So we've identified those three groups of people that have not come back, right? So we've got those non-returning bowlers. We used to call them dropouts or lapsed bowlers, but kind of a softer term in a marketing circle would be a non-returning fall league bowler. And how do we identify and then reconnect with those guests? And first and foremost, we've got to identify those folks, right? We have to understand who they are. And I know that all of you here know that you're missing fall league bowlers, and you may know them by face, you may even know some of their names. But when about to ask you a couple of questions, when I talk about identifying those non-returning bowlers, I'm talking about identifying them from a marketing perspective, meaning can you communicate with them? Do you have their address? Do you have their phone number? Do you have their email address? And do you know who they are? So if you're down 40%, can you identify those 40%? And then either communicate with them via direct mail, telephone, or email. And that's really, we've got to capture that before we can even go any further and hope to bring some back. So we're going to do a little poll question here. We got some data yesterday and want to get your data as well. So this first question we're going to ask, that Kelly will put up in just a second, is geared towards my operators, proprietors, league coordinators, managers, association folks. You're going to have a question for you in just a second. So Kelly, if you put up that first question there, this is for my proprietor folks. Does your center know how to pull the report that gives you what I mentioned, the name, the address, the phone number, the email address of those folks that didn't return? If you don't, that's okay. But let's take a quick, I see folks are checking in there. Awesome. Do you have access to that information? We'll tally that and make some notes here in a second. We'll give that just another second there, Kelly. If you can there, if you're driving, don't vote. I want to be safe and responsible. So Kelly, let's go ahead and close that out if you would. Awesome, thank you. And go ahead and display those results. And I will tell you, it's amazing because that is within 2 percentage points of our folks yesterday there. You'll see that 87% of you are saying that, hey, Bart, I can find that that data, or I can pull that data, which is incredible. That's good. I can assure you that's far above the national average. So as they say down south, good on you. So now we're going to put up a question from our association friends. And similar question to all of you. Do you know how, some of you may be new, you may have been in position for quite some time. Do you know how to gather that information? And if you'd take a moment, association folks, and answer that for us, we would appreciate that. I know we have a few of those on today as well. We'll give that just another second here. And Kelly, let's go ahead and close that out if you would. And we'll display that. And you can see that that's 8317. That falls well in line with yesterday's numbers as well. So I appreciate your candor and honesty and letting us know that. And we're going to spend some time talking about how we can gather that. So Kelly, if you would, you can go ahead and remove that. So let's spend some time talking about how to identify those non-returning fall league bowlers, right? Here at Bowling University, we have kind of saying we go by one of several. It's not easy, but it's simple. And it's simple that, we know that people aren't with us. We know who some of them are by face, maybe by name, but it's not easy because you've got a lot going on. You're busy. And for most of us, the small business operators, our marketing isn't, we don't spend as much time on it as we should, putting it nicely. So, understand that data is king. If you're going to connect with those folks that didn't return, you have to have the data, right? You have to have the data. You can't reach out to those 40%, whether that's 200, 400, whatever that number is, unless you have the data. So if we're going to get the data, it really can come from three options to secure the data. And I'll spend just a second on each of those there. First and foremost, as an operator, you may have a center CRM or a customer relationship management program, or in layman's terms, a database. And that database could be as straightforward as an Excel worksheet. It could be as robust as Salesforce or some other. But if you have that and you're able to pull that data from your center, then good, that's excellent. But understand, you are in probably the top 10% of the industry in being able to gather that data. So if you have that, good, that's awesome. Another resource is BLS, or your league record service. And that also can be a great data source in there. The challenge for that is having all the needed data. And as I visit with folks, and I'm guilty of it myself, my hand goes up as an operator, taking the time in the fury of, in the rush of starting a fall league kickoff and getting leagues started, all I was concerned about is get their names in, get the scores in, get their averages in, wins and losses, and make sure it's accurate. I'll go back and enter the other data that I need later. And guess what? I got busy and later never came, right? So many of our BLS applications and many of our league record service applications absolutely have the ability to pull those reports. However, the data is not there. Garbage in, garbage out. And one of the other things that is a bit of a challenge with that is often folks don't go by the same name that they would in your other database, meaning they might use a nickname, or they might use Mike instead of Michael. And some even use crazy names. I mean, Mike, one of the hardest working guys here at the campus, he's an avid bowler, very good. He beats up on me quite frequently. I don't know if you know this or not, but Mike doesn't use his name when he bowls. If you go up and he's bowler one, it's going to say Mike Drop. I mean, that's his code name, Mike Drop. And, it makes him feel good. I don't mind. But if I go to pull the data and for some reason Mike doesn't come back and I pull the report and it says Mike Drop, I can't call or send an email or text, Mike Drop. I need to speak to Mr. Larson. So you just have to understand the quality of that data. And the real source, and the one we want to talk about today, is the local USBC association. And it's where we're going to spend our time talking about how we gather that data, how we share that data, and how we form a partnership that candidly maybe hasn't been as deep and as strong as it could be or should be. But today's the day we get started.
Thanks for sharing that nickname, Bart. Appreciate that. And yeah, so to get into the local associations as being the data source, right? We are the data headquarters. Our local associations are in your market as a proprietor, your local association. They're the ones that diligently take those membership application cards, put them into the database, what we call WinLabs. That data comes to USBC headquarters, and that's how we have all of our bowlers' information. So as Bart mentioned, we know our operators are very busy, and you're asking the guy behind the desk while he's busy, possibly running to change a score, help with the deadwood, to then, hey, also go enter the membership application information, and be sure to get the proper email address and phone number for him too while we're at it. sometimes that gets lost, right? And as he says, later never comes. And so, but our associations, that's what we do. Membership information is our bread and butter. And we have the database over years and years, over 20 years now of having this database of our bowler information. We have access to help provide that to you to help communicate to our past bowlers. So WinLabs is the software I mentioned. Our associations on the call, they'll know for sure. But it has a dropped bowler report. Okay, we call it lapsed bowler, as Bart mentioned, but in the report it's called drop bowler. And so for our associations, I think there was a couple who might have mentioned on there that they didn't know or weren't sure that they could pull that. Literally, this is how you would do it. You go to WinLabs, you go into your reports, you click the leagues tab, you pull the league dropout rate by league. Okay, as basic as it sounds, right? You're going to pull that report. You're going to pull it by bowling center. Okay, you're then going to preview and export the file. Okay, we're going to show you an example of a file in just a second, but we want you to save it two ways. Save it as a PDF to review it, because it's designed to look on the screen and then print it, but hey, it looks good, I can see what's going on here. But really, to use the data, we need to export it as an Excel. Okay, CSV or Excel, both will work. CSV, comma separated value, it's another type of Excel file, but it dumps the data into a file you can then utilize. And that's what's important. Because if you get a PDF file and you're like, okay, this is great. Now, we don't want anybody to retype this information. That's already been done. That's in the past. We're now ready to use the data. So putting it in an Excel file or a CSV will allow us to then take it, grab all the email addresses or grab all the phone numbers, grab all the mailing lists, whatever they are, however you're going to utilize it, whatever action we're going to take to then activate our past members, our lapsed bowlers, you need to be able to grab from that Excel file, okay? So it does take someone who knows a little bit about the software, okay? Someone who's used Excel before. We're not asking you to make any pivot tables or do any funky stuff with the data, but copy and paste, moving it over to some fresh sheets to then utilize it for either a mail merge or to drop into a Constant Contact or a MailChimp. That's what we're talking about, and it can easily be done here. The other thing is multiple years. You can go back past years. And so that's something we want to remind ourselves too, is even though we know we're in this mode of we're trying to focus on our bowlers from last year who didn't come back, we can go back 2, 3, 4 years if we need to. We can talk to those who haven't come back in a couple years to let them know about the fun. They've also been cooped up at home for 6 months. Bowling might be the outlet that they need too. Okay, here's the report as promised. As you can see, top left, Bart's Bowlerama, back for league play this year. So as I said, this is the PDF look, okay? As the association, you pull the report, view it as a PDF, export it, save it. You're going to email it to your proprietors. That's how this is going to go. But you'll see what we have here with this report, and it's going to be done by league. And you can see right here as an example, we have the Wednesday Night Mixers League, okay? On the left-hand side, scrolling across there, we have the 2021 winter season, 10 teams, 4 players per team. You can see the count from last year on this roster was 59. This year, 21 have dropped out, okay? Gives you the dropout rate. You do see up there, we have a same center, different league, a different center, and a quit, right? And that aligns with the far right column. So if you take your eyes over there to that far right column for me, you'll see Angela, the first bowler, right? She's at a different center, okay? So she's bowling again. The association has already put in all the leagues from this center and the other center in their association, and Angela switched bowling centers, right? So she's still bowling, but she's at a different center. You go down to, let's see, down there, George. George has an SCDL. And as you can see from the bottom right, my little index, right, that's same center, different league. Okay, so he's not bowling on Wednesdays, right? He got a different job, and now he's working Wednesday nights. So now he's bowling on Tuesdays. Okay, so that's what that means. And really, as you might imagine, those quits are really where we're trying to focus. Okay, and you can see let's go to the first quit on the list there, Michael, not Mike Drop, but Michael. You've got his address, his city, state, his zip code, his email address. And yes, the gray bars are hidden there for their or are there to hide their identity, but those show very clearly on the report yourself. And so phone number, email address, mailing address, all of those contact points that we referenced earlier as wanting to have, they're all there on this report. So very critical. All of our associations on the call, we're going to get into this a little later too, but if you've got your leagues processed for your centers already, let's say your league started in middle August, right? We've been bowling for a month now. You're now at the point where you can pull the report by bowling center and have it ready to go, okay? So if you have all your leagues in, you say, hey, our area's been up and bowling. we've been very fortunate in our area. Pull the reports now, export as a PDF, export as an Excel or a CSV, and email to your centers tomorrow.
Yeah, good. I'm going to go back just because I love this slide on there. And if we can put that one up, Gerald, thank you, Rockstar. My operator friends, proprietors, managers, league coordinators, this is money. This is gold. Okay. As Mike mentioned, we have shaded out some of the actual data just to, for privacy purposes, but this is real data from this season from a league. And you will see that this particular league alone had a 36% dropout rate, right? And that's not unlike the national average there. But I want to note a couple of things. Even in this report, you'll notice that there are still a few names that are missing some data. Might be missing an email address, might be missing a phone number or something. So it's imperative more than ever that we work together to make sure that we're collecting as much data as we can and as much good data as we can. I mean, look at that top line. That's like a money line for me when you look at same center, different league. And again, putting my operator hat on, I don't consider that a dropout because I still retain them in my center, but yet it's a position I need to fill in that league, but it's real. The different center, now while the USBC, the association may not consider that a dropout, I as an operator certainly do, and that's something that on a different thing I probably need to look at and work through. But really the painful one is the quit, right? Those 52 of the dropouts, 52%, 11 quit. And those are the people that we can identify. Why did they leave? Why did they quit? Is it because of COVID? What bucket, which one of those groups of Mike's 3 identifiers do they fall into? So this report is golden. And I also want to speak to the partnership here at the campus and the, kind of the way we're trying to work together to help you. Spirit of full disclosure, 10 days ago, emails didn't exist in this report because this report was originally years ago designated to be used as a direct mail purposes. So you'd find the mail address and send them a postcard or a flyer or something to try to reactivate them into league bowling. We started to work on this project, got together with Mike and said, Mike, in today's environment, we really have to have those email addresses. He put in a project, worked with USBC IT. Within a few days, it's done. It's being pushed out. So association folks, if you go to run this report, it's going to look different than it would have 2 weeks ago because we've collaborated together and brought this, and this is impactful. This is very good. As we were doing some of the interviews, I was doing some proprietor interviews, even some that were very proactive in getting their data, said, Bart, I would love to get a peek at it. Because number one, I know my data's not perfect, as good as I am with it. And number two, to Mike's point, I really would like to look at multiple years, right? How do I go back 2 years and 3 years and get that data? So even if you already have access to the data, how cool would it be to get it in this format, to cross-reference it against your data, and then also be able to go back and get multiple years? This is money, folks, in there. So Mike, appreciate those efforts there. Now let's get into the next slide here. So normal process by rule, the way the normal league works is that, the league officers, whoever's responsible for processing that certification has 30 days to get it to the local association. And then the local association has 20 days to get it into the system. So, then they're satisfied and ready to go. We are, I'm begging, I'm pleading that how do we work together to reduce this timeline? Again, looking through the lens of when I was active, like many of you in the field and centers there, no disrespect to my USBC folks, not at all. This is a very important task, but it wasn't urgent. In my workflow as an owner or an operator, it was important to get that information to the association, but it wasn't urgent. It only became urgent when somebody needed a card for an average or a tournament or some verification. But it doesn't mean it wasn't important. It absolutely was important. But guess what? Now it's not only important, it is urgent. And I would tell you, underline and bold urgent, because it is extremely urgent. This is all about speed to market, because here's what I believe, and I believe this in my heart of hearts. The longer the gap from the time that somebody decides not to come back with you, the higher the dropout. Right? Let me say that again. The longer the gap, the time they're away, the higher propensity, the higher percentage of people will not come back. And it's not necessarily bowling. It can be for really any activity. It can be for sport activity, a personal activity. It's just a human trait, right? Stephen Covey says it takes 21 days to form a habit. I don't know how many days it takes to break a habit when you don't do something, but we're about to find out. And we're about to find out painfully if we don't do something and do it now. Okay, so we've got to reduce that speed to market. We've got to get that there. We've got to partner together to figure out how do we get 50 days down to 40? How do we get 40 down to 30? How do we get 30 down to 25? You know, when Mike and I were planning and working together with the teams putting this together, you know, Mike said, well, hey, Bart, what's realistic? What do you think we should do? I said, how about tomorrow? Yeah. You know, and only half joking, but understanding that there is some time involved in it. It's not tomorrow, but we need to do it quickly. And just to share with you some things that were kicked around yesterday. Folks talked about, you know, how do I work closer with my center? You know, proprietors, managers, how do you incentivize or how do you communicate with league officers to get that information to the local association quicker? And local association, how do you partner with the center and even offer to come be at the center a couple nights a week, and you let all your leagues know that you'll be there and they can bring it to you. And yesterday, somebody shared that they even set up a little communication box at the center, and they agreed to come check it every day to expedite the process. So access to this data is critical. You have to get it quicker than ever, right? And it's unlike any other year, and I don't want to over dramatize it, but I want to over dramatize it, that if we wait 50 days for this information, we are not going to like the outcome. We are not going to like the outcome at all. We have to get that information quicker and faster than ever.
Yeah, thanks, Bart. And just one last thing on that topic for our associations, right? As Bart was alluding to, we know what the rule book says. We know you got 30 days for the league officer to do it, 20 days for the association. It's about what's best service for the bowlers, for your centers, and for yourself this year. It's not about, well, this is a time frame we're allotted to. If you have the league secretaries who are always late, right? Visit them at league, right? Do them the service this year. Do yourself the service, the bowlers the service, to get their certifications in faster, because we can't run those reports to be as effective as they need to be until we get the data. We can start them. We can look at rosters, get things going, but really they become really powerful once we know and the leagues have been processed. So we strongly encourage you to do that. All right, so a little bit of recent survey data. In the past 2 weeks, we surveyed our top 120 associations, our largest ones, and we said, hey, you know, how many of you are running this report for your centers right now? How many of your centers are requesting it? So similar to the question we just asked the audience here, our answers here were resoundingly different with our associations. Now, that could be because the BLS system or your CRM at the center level is what you use and your go-to. But we assure you that comparing that data with the association's database list is really valuable. So only 13% of our centers, according to our associations, were asking for that report, okay? And likewise, historically, only 27% of our local associations are running that non-returning bowler report for their centers, okay? And so likewise, we have both parties that historically this hasn't been a regular practice of sharing information year to year. In some cases, it has. And those of you who have been doing it and it is part of your operations, thank you. Great job. Keep up the good work, but let's do it faster this year. So a couple of other comments we got back from that survey, a couple of them were, we've offered it in the past, but they're not interested. We only provide it upon request. Guess what? This year is not the year to wait for a request. This year is the year that you know that they need it. You know that bowling needs it. And so please process those reports, run them early, run them often, run them when you're ready, but get them to their centers and then call them when you sent it to them. Ensure that they have it. Ask if they've got questions, right? We don't know what they're going to do with the data unless we ask them. But this is going to be a really big part of our partnership, is understanding what the centers and the associations are going to be able to do together to communicate with those past bowlers.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. That data is incredible. You know, the pessimist would look at that slide and say that's terrible, and the optimist would look at that slide and say, what an incredible amount of opportunity. What a incredible opportunity we have to connect, to work together, and get that information there. If we were down 40 to 50% in league bowlers and already had this data and doing all the things, I'd be really worried, right? Because would have executed the plan. I'm not excited that we're down that much, but we are in a once in a lifetime historical event like no other. But we have some opportunities. We have some things that we can do there. And I bet that there's one among you with us today on the proprietor side or the operator side that may be new to the business or just may not even realize that report was even available by your association. That's okay. That's why we're sharing this and we're trying to get the word out. And candidly, there are probably a couple of associations that may have a new person that may not realize the data is available. And that's okay too. What we're concerned about is, what are you going to do tomorrow? What's going to be different tomorrow than what we did today there? So we're going to stop just for a second, because this first part, and we spend the majority of our time on this first one because it's so critical and it's so important, because no matter how great your marketing strategy is at the center level, no matter how great your marketing strategy is at the association level, no matter how great our marketing strategy here is at the national level, it means nothing if you don't know who to market to. So we have to have the people to market to. We have to identify those that have not returned. So Kelly, let's see if we maybe have some folks. This would be a great time. If you have any questions on this, collecting the data, or best practices to share, we'd love to hear from you. So Kelly.
Great. We have first one here is David Spiegel. So David, go ahead and fire your question you have for Mike.
My question was already answered. I asked, I put up a question, will the reports be automatically sent, or do you have to ask for it? And if you have to ask for it, why? And you answered and said, you're going to have all the associations send it out.
We're going to sure tell them to. I mean, that's what we've been communicating. It's going out in an email tonight as well. We've been talking about the drop bowler report over the last couple of weeks through phone calls, et cetera. I will say, if you have a situation where your association is not as in tune right now with what's going on and not helping assist the center, contact us. We're happy to help facilitate that too. We can make some phone calls. We can even pull some database reports if we need to. Like I said, a lot of this will really depend on once the leagues get going and get processed. Once we have the data, we can really support you the best we can. But I'd encourage you to call your association if you haven't heard from them about this topic yet. It was great yesterday. Actually, I had a phone call with Joe Spain in Atlanta, and he said, "Yeah, one of my centers called me this afternoon. It sounds like he had spoke to you." And I said, "Well, he sat in on the webinar and he's already calling the association to get that report." So we're seeing some activation right away in some places.
All right, thanks guys. And the next question here is from Tom Hubbard. Tom, go ahead and ask your question.
Good afternoon, Bart and Mike. Hope everybody's doing well. The bowler drop list, we've been pulling it for probably a month now, every week, every other week, and checking it out as far as that goes. So first thing I want to say is thanks for adding the email fields. So that's going to be quite helpful. One of the things, though, that I would like to see, since we are pulling this report regularly, would be a master printout instead of having to go league by league, because we have to go back and then kind of manipulate the data into an Excel format. So that's one of the things that I'd like to request, is if it's possible to get one master list for all the leagues that bowl in our center. That's great. The other thing that you guys brought up too, since we were pulling since early August, because we started our leagues early, some of our other centers locally hadn't put in the data. So as that data is going in too, it's good to continue to pull the data week by week.
Super, super. And so Tom I appreciate the comments, and yes, I hear you on the one master list for the center. We know there's some manipulation we can help do there if we're having some issues, but yes, it is by league right now. Is Bruce pulling that for you down at Sarasota Manatee County Association?
Yes, Bruce is pulling the list. He's doing a really good job. And then also, again, he's able to update me by saying, not all the leagues are entered yet from the centers. Because again, we kind of got things started early here in Florida and jumped out a little bit ahead of our competition as we're waiting for the rest of the data to come in from the other centers. Then he can continue to update the list for me.
Perfect. Good to hear. Good to hear.
All right, thanks guys. And next one is Jerry here. Jerry had a couple questions, and they're both great questions. So Jerry, fire away your question there for, look like Mike, or both actually.
Hey, Jerry Hudson here from Bowland, Fort Charlotte. Also, I was at Howell, Michigan for a number of years. Michigan just got an opening up. We've always had a little trouble with the association not working real good and tight, getting these information to us. Is there a way that we can get this information? Like you did answer, we can call directly to you and maybe get the dropout information, or even last year's bowler list, to where we can go back to that to make sure that we've got it all up to date and can start calling all those bowlers. And even though we've got the bowlers on the floor, we can take the time to double check them all.
Sure. Yeah. Good point, Jerry. I think you're talking about if we look at just last year's total rosters, right? Can we get those? And no doubt we have those right there from last year. That's past data that we have, in the catalog. And so we're happy to get that for you. If you're having some issues with your association, yes, give me a call. One of my colleagues, David Prang, David Fields, or myself, Mike Larson, we're happy to help in any way we can with getting you what we have access to already, and or communicating with your association and get them on the ball.
Okay, I do appreciate it. Thank you very, very much. Great job today, as always.
Great. Well, guys, I have a question. He was lined up, ready to go, but it looks like he got dropped. I don't know if it was on our end or his end. I'll ask his question because he had typed it into the Q&A. It says, some centers have non-sanctioned leagues, so local USBC will not have a roster for those bowlers. Having a non-sanctioned leagues should send out forms for those leagues to fill out with all the information. It's just kind of a comment that he made to help about the maybe a way of getting people to get information from non-sanctioned leagues. So that was one there. And then I also had from Mike Jacobs made a comment. He says, I just supported a proprietor who had 0 customer data on their bowlers. Michael, that is exactly the way we'd love to see things working. The teamwork of helping a proprietor get things going and moving forward. That's the stuff we're looking for. Those are the questions that we had here. The other one that I had is, sorry, one more. It just came in. It says, the association I manage services 6 different centers. Can I just run one report and reply it and send it to everyone?
No, please do not do that. If you notice at the top of that report, it actually, we put up there the policy on purpose, just as an extra disclaimer. Every center should only receive their own bowlers' data, okay? Their own customers. We are not to share as an association all of your bowlers, and whether it's drop bowlers or current rostered bowlers, we do not share that across centers, vice versa, okay? Each report for each center by themselves. Thank you.
There was a question, is there an issue with getting phone numbers for texting purposes? Are there regulations on that? Art?
Yeah, I would say that the current, and Mike can also jump in here because it's actually their data source. A bowler has the opportunity to opt out, which means if they do opt out, we have to abide by that, and neither USBC or BPA should communicate with them. But the permission, the opt-in currently is for email only. They're not providing a cell number for texting at this time.
Yeah, and on our side with the phone numbers that are on our list, we're unsure if they are mobile or home phone. And I'm not familiar enough with how the texting features work and the capabilities there, but they sure, in this day and age, most of them probably are mobile phones. And so you could do those and test it out to see how that goes in a small target segment to see how that might work.
Yeah, but you would want to make sure that, and again, I'm going to get too deep in the weeds or off track, but for my operators that asked that question there, now you could email those league guests and give them an opportunity to complete and give their cell phone with permission to opt in, but you don't want to take a chance and text those numbers because you don't have permission to. You're violating the current mobile laws in doing that. Now, there's ways to get there. So you can use your email database to build an SMS database or a text database that if you're in that space there. I would like to just layer in, and Kelly, the 2 questions that you had there as it relates to additional data. Certainly if you attended any of our programming at the university, we would always encourage you to have your own database in your location, to use a team registration card that would allow you to collect that data so you have that. And then we always encourage you to cross-reference that with USBC data. We do realize that, the industry data shows, it's public data, that according to your feedback and research to us, that about 80% of all league bowlers get USBC certification, which is great. We highly recommend it. But we know that in some cases, based on season and in some of the formats, they may choose to be non-certified. So as an operator, you want data of all your guests, and then you want to make sure that you partner with USBC to make sure that you have great data on that league guest as well.
Yeah, and I'd be remiss if I wouldn't say it is a value and part of the certification is the database that we have that can help the centers.
Yeah, great questions there. Okay, And again, I know Mike mentioned it, but from the operator, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least say it again. That league bowler data for that individual center is confidential. It is, access to that should only be to that center and that proprietor. And we want to make sure that, we're partnering together to get the data that is rightly ours, and it wouldn't be ethical for me to ask for another center's information or to be provided another center's information in doing that. So just to reiterate that. So great questions. Keep those coming. This is a big part of it, that you've got to have the data first. You've got to have good, clean data to be able to write, to be able to call, or to be able to email. And for my marketing extraordinaire that asked on the text message, and you can then build in that text message there. So we'll move on from there. But if you have some additional questions, keep coming those to Kelly, or we'll have some time at the end to do that. Now, you've captured the data. What are we going to do with it? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that from a national perspective. So we're going to spend just a few minutes on a national communication partnership that we're going to do on your behalf. And quite candidly, we're going to do on behalf of all bowling centers in America, all associations in America, all the data we can find of people that have made the choice not to come back to league bowling yet. So here's the belief. We want to, from a national perspective here at the campus, as a partnership with USBC and BPAA, we think it's important, and we have to keep bowling top of mind with this group. Remember, we're worried. I mean, we're very worried about the gap. And then the higher the gap, the longer the gap, the higher the dropout rate's going to be. And we need to let those people know that either bowling is back. And I know some of you may be in a situation that you're still waiting, or you're still waiting, you're easing into it. And we need to let them know that hey, we're ready when they are. Really, just it's a messaging. It's what we call branding. It's creating that top of mind awareness there. And I love Mike's examples that he shared with you, those 3 user groups, those unplugged. And I will tell you that unplugged is real. Not everybody is glued to social media 24/7, and not everybody is watching the news 24/7. In fact, in this current environment, more people are unplugging and just want to get away from it for 30 to 60 days. I don't blame them. But there is a group in that unplugged. And kind of the example that I use that may make sense, I hope, from a bowling perspective, is for many of us, if you were in the business then, when we transitioned from smoking facilities to non-smoking facilities, right? That happened, and we lived it, and we thought everybody knew about it right away. But how long was it that people were calling you or coming into the center after the law had been passed that said, I didn't realize you were non-smoking. I didn't even know. And you're like, it's been a law for 3 years, and you voted on it, all right? It was an amendment. So my point is that, just because you know it, and just because, you think that everybody doesn't know it. So there are many folks. And in speaking with some of you, you've told me that, Bart, I get calls all the time where people are like, are you really open? Are you open? I heard you might be open, and they may have been open for 60, 90, 120 days. So there's a group in that unplugged that doesn't realize that bowling is back. And then in the unsafe, there are some that aren't sure, and we need them to know that, hey, we're ready when they are. We're ready when you are. And that's kind of the tag that we're going with. We're ready when you are. So on a national level, we're going to gather all of those email addresses that we have, and we're going to do something with them. I want to show you a very early look. This is not the final, but a very early look at some creative on some messaging that these non-returning league bowlers hopefully will see from us, from an industry. You'll see there's the email graphic. Bowling is ready when you are. We're also going to have some social media posts. We have a few that will have some masks in some areas that may be a little more restrictive, and you think the mask is an important thing to communicate. But the idea is the same. Bowling is an incredible activity. It's an incredible sport. It's an incredible way to reconnect with family and friends. And guess what? We're ready when you are. So that's a very early look at the creative. Mike's going to walk you through a little bit about what we're going to do.
Yeah, so appreciate you sharing some of those, Bart. And what we're going to do on the national side from USBC and communicating to these past members is we're really going to try to target them. But we can't target them until we know that those leagues have come in. So this goes back to the speed in which our memberships and our leagues get processed, because as soon as they get processed, we can start evaluating where we stand and which bowlers didn't come back, per league, per association, per center, and then we can start communicating to them over the coming weeks and months, right? But having that information is so critical, so we're communicating to the right people, okay? Also, bowl.com, you saw the landing page there. We're going to be have a kind of a splash page for this, where we'll send these bowlers after we communicate with them through email, ask them to land here, click here to find your local center, try to get them to communicate back with their local bowling center or association to find out, hey, what leagues are ready for me next. Okay. And then the social media stuff, right? Just keeping bowling top of mind the best we can through all our different channels. And so that's why the different graphics were created for those social channels. So the tool bank as well, some of these will be here for you. You can utilize them in your social channels. Feel free to reshare that sort of stuff. If you're doing local emails as an association, you can use this messaging and graphics too.
Yeah, good stuff, Mike. So all of that is going to be deployed in the very near future, from a national perspective there as we move forward. And I know that's a short section, but I do want to just pause for a moment and see if we have any questions, Kelly, on this. So imagine that, I don't know if the number is 250,000, 300,000, whatever it is on a national basis, that we're able to connect with those folks on your behalf, not telling them what programs you have, not telling them what league openings you have or when you're starting or stopping, but just reminding them that bowling is back and we're ready when you are. And then from there, that's where you'll pick it up. So Kelly, any questions on that portion right there?
Like you said, short segment. There's nothing has come in at this time. I'm sure they'll come in before the next segment. So go right on ahead.
Awesome. Just want to make sure, keep those questions coming there.
All right. So now we're going to dig into what we believe is the most critical and impactful is the local communication that we really are striving with this session to kick off with our associations and centers on working on, because our bowling centers and our local associations are uniquely positioned to partner together on these communication efforts, right? You know the market best. You know your local laws, your local health and safety protocols. You know what the bowling centers are doing to help keep cleanliness top of mind and keep bowlers safe as they can. All of that happens locally. You know why your bowlers are doing what they're doing and what's happening in your local government agencies and what's happening there. That each local entity is understanding of that versus on a national scale. Next, you have the quickest access to the information. To our association managers, we've said it a couple times on here. We'll say it one more. As soon as you have processed all those leagues, it's time to run those reports and get them to your bowling centers and then talk to them about what's going to happen next. You can share what's going on in your area, right? The communication efforts locally that you can provide contain that information about what's happening in your market. So it's really the ability for you to share stuff that's more impactful than us just saying something from the large scale, hey, go bowling again, right? But we're trying to keep it on a top of mind perspective, but local activation is going to be key. And lastly, you're their fellow bowler and friend. You might be in their league. You might see them at a local tournament. You might see them there practicing or having a good time with their friends on whatever it is, staying after league and practicing a couple games. These are your friends from the past, and we want them to continue to be your friends. And you can be the friendly face that calls them, emails them, and says hi, and asks how they're doing and when they're ready to come back to bowling. Right? Very different from coming from the campus here in Arlington on USBC or BPA side of things, right? But you're their B2B. You're the friend. Excuse me, not even the C2C. You might be the business side on the association or the center, but you're also the friend and the customer.
Good stuff there, Mike. So we've identified these non-returning league guests. We are going to try to speak to them from a national perspective. Now we want to give you some tools so you can communicate with them on a local perspective as well. And this is where you can partner with your center and your association. So one of the things that we've developed for you for your use is a couple of postcard templates. We've developed a 4x6 postcard and a 6x9, or what we call an oversized postcard. And we've just given you some approximate price points there of what we believe it would cost if you wanted to print some of those up and get those out in the direct mail to those non-returning league guests. And how cool would it be if a local association partnered with a local center and shared the mail costs, shared the print costs, whatever that looks like. I think this is a great opportunity for associations and for centers to work together and to reach those guests there. One of the other elements that we've done is provided some letterhead for you. You know, we learned from our previous session that there were some centers that were taking the time to do handwritten letters, individual letters or typewritten letters, hand signed, rather than just, you know, kind of a postcard thing. So we are going to provide a letterhead because that may be more formal, maybe something that the association can reach out and say, you know, we miss you, we're ready when you are. Might be something where the center would be able to reach out and say messaging. And as well, we'll have some web images, some digital support for you, so you can kind of have that messaging that you want in your place. Again, I'm going to show you some very early creative just to get you thinking. This is not final, but I just want you to see kind of where our positioning our heads at. This would be a sample of the 4x6 postcard, and this would be sent by the individual association or by the you know, the center or jointly. Mm-hmm. And you can see there, it says bowling is ready when you are, and nice young lady in there smiling, waiting. And we've got, you'll see the other side there, we put in a little bit of copy for you. And underneath there is where you would put your bowling center specific or association specific content. That's where your message would go. Specific vacancies, specific programs, a message from the association, whatever that is that you want to say or do specific to your group, that's where you would put it, address it, stamp it, out in the mail, it's off to go. And you can see there, and we think it's a pretty good message there. Bowling is back as America's #1 lifetime participation sport. We're not going anywhere. I think it's important. We're not going anywhere. We realize that the time may not be right for you yet, but we miss your smiling face at our center. And when you're ready to reconnect with your league and friends on the lanes, know that we're here for you, okay? Again, it's just connecting with that person, letting them know where we are there. We also have a little sample of the digital images you see there. Bowling is ready when you are, also some letterhead. And again, these would be resources that you would use to get really specific now with what you're going to do at your association or your center, or what practices you have in place, or what programs you have in place, or some of the best practices we'll share in just a second, what things you might want to do. So you're going to have collateral at the center, local association level that you're going to have access to, that you can you can put into practice there. That kind of layers, you know, over the overarching message that we're going to do nationally on your behalf as well there. So as we have in the past, I'm going to stop there for a moment, and Kelly, see if we have any questions really about this or anything up to this that you might have out there.
We do. We have a couple here in line. We got David back here again. Give me a second. I just forgot to get his. David, I'm just going to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself and go ahead and ask your question. Since I didn't get you up on the screen here.
Okay, I have 2 questions. You know, number one, the national campaign. Can that be done state by state? Because if you send out something with bowlers without masks to states where they're required to wear masks, you create confusion and ill will when they show up without a mask.
Yeah, David, good to hear from you, and good to see you earlier. Yeah, we certainly, and again, this is all very rough creative. You know, we will likely end up with a masked version and a non-masked version that you know, could be both for the center level, association level, and both that could be used nationally as well. And there may be even be something without there may be a final that's just messaging without a person. You know, this is all high level placeholder creative to just kind of get you let everybody know what we're thinking about. But certainly there are some areas that look, there are areas in the country where wearing a mask is offensive, that there is no regulation for masks, and there are leagues that are happening. And to your point, there are some areas of the country that's exactly the opposite.
Right. So as I said, the local part, no problem. That's our choice. What do we use? But I'm concerned about the national, you know, sending things out. Yeah. That's where the concern is.
And I think that's great feedback for us. As Bart alluded to, we're still, you know, final touches on some of these. And so, you know, we'll take that into consideration with the final creative that does get put together, that we need to have both, you know, both created. And there might be some options for us to look at segmenting how that's sent out from us for some of that.
So David, as usual, very insightful. Appreciate your comments. We're going to note that and make sure we properly address that before we make a final.
And now we have Jerry. Jerry's back. He had a comment. He makes copies of the USBC cards prior before turning them in. So he's got a copy of them. Good call, Jerry. Now, what's your question, Jerry?
Oh, well, no, my question was concerning the postcards and things. Thanks, Bart. I just recently got my Go Bowling America kits, and I've got them working on those and getting those out in 3 different programs. My question is, number one, are you going to make some kind of a postcard for the Go Bowling similar to this that we could possibly use? And also, is USBC still doing the short season $10 or whatever short season for like the short season sanctioning program for the people, so we can use like the $10 or the $12, whatever the local fee is for those to make those certified?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Mike answer your second question first, Jerry, and then I'll jump in and answer the first one.
Yeah, so that, if you've got a short session league with 16 sessions or less, yes, the adult basic membership, which is a total of $10, is still available for any league that would certify under those parameters, for sure.
And Jerry, great to see you. To your first question, before 30 seconds ago, no, but probably now, yes, because you gave us another great idea, which is why we do these things. So thank you, David and Jay, for that. So do we have a bowling postcard today? No, but within 24 hours, there may be one. So we certainly will make sure we add that to the kit and announce that appropriately.
Yeah, that would be great, because, getting in touch with the people and doing, even with the every door direct type format where you can do within a 5-mile radius of you, something like that might fit very well with a lot of the bowling centers. And I know it probably would in my bowling center area.
Yeah, and I'm asking our team if they would please make a note of that, so I don't forget when we're done here, so we can do that. So as usual, great stuff there, Jerry. Thanks.
Next one was Cynthia Thomas, but I think we're having some audio issues here. So I'll go ahead and ask her question that she typed in. It says, how do we sign up to take advantage of this help with purchasing of these postcards when they are ready?
So Cynthia, that's a good question. And I apologize if I didn't explain that properly, because we'll still roll out some communication. The cost was just a approximate for you. We're going to provide you the digital template. And then you would then, at the association or the center level, be responsible for creating that postcard and then sending it off to be printed. Office Depot is a great Smart Buy partner. We get great rates on printing and postcards. So you would then, through just your software, Adobe or whatever it's going to be done in there. I'm not the tech guy or the creative guy. And then you'll send that to Office Depot. They'll print it, and then you can mail it yourself. So we won't actually be doing the printing and the fulfillment, because it would not be very user friendly for you and the centers. So the association and the centers will give you the template. You'll do the editing, the creating, and then the printing and mailing yourself.
All right, that's our last one for this segment, and we'll hopefully have some more that come back in before your next segment.
Awesome. Great questions there. So let's get into our last section there. We're going a little bit long, but that's awesome because you've got some great comments and questions. You gave us a couple of best practices to think about here. The last piece of what we want to share with you is after we identify the users, those non-users that we want to speak with, we're going to have a little bit of marketing message yet to be refined on a national level. You at the center level and the association level will have an opportunity to do a marketing message yourself. Now, the last piece was we went out and spoke to some proprietors like yourself. In fact, I would just acknowledge Tom Hubbard, the chair of our League Development Committee, and his group and the work they've done on this, and also some interviews we did with other proprietors, as well as Mike is going to share with some things that they've done with some local associations. So I've got a few best practices. Mike's going to share a few best practices, and then we'll have some closing thoughts there and get your questions answered. So as I was talking to some folks like you, asking my series of questions, doing my interviews, one of the quotes that came out was, Bart, this is going to be the world's longest fall kickoff ever. And I thought about it, and I hadn't really thought about it in that way, but as I thought about it, you're absolutely right. Normally, after Labor Day, maybe a week or two after Labor Day, we're on to, planning for the holiday season, on to planning for short season. And the fall kickoff, we either celebrate or we try to learn for next time what we want to do better. But in this unique environment, this is not going to end until January, right? I was sharing some information with a proprietor on social media, and they said, well, my leagues have already started. I'm down 40%. You know, it's done. I said, no, it's not done. It's not done. It's not done until we say it's done. It's just starting, right? This is going to be the world's longest kickoff ever. Don't give up. Don't quit. Don't just because your core league starting, you're 45% down. You're not done. That's just, let's identify those 45% and let's keep going. You know, this is going to be the world's longest kickoff ever. So let's share a little bit about what some places out there are doing. Again, as Mike mentioned in our disclaimers, not all these are going to be right for you. They're just some things for you to think about. Much of this is going to be triggered by a vaccine or loosening of government restrictions. To Mr. Spiegel's point, you know, the one thing I've learned about this virus is it's divisive, and how it's impacted you and your community and where you live really has gauged the response and your willingness to get out and do certain things. So as a vaccine comes to market and as government restrictions are loosened, I think that is really going to trigger a lot of this local activation. I love the idea, and this came out from one of the proprietors who spoke to this, said, Bart, I'm pretty secure with my data, but I want to get those additional years report. I want to partner with USBC, get 2 years, 3 years back, and I want to have a marketing campaign for them. I thought that was a great thing to share. Some folks are calling with wellness checks. It's not selling. It's not a telemarketer calling to sell to get you back on Tuesday night. It's a genuine wellness check. How are you? Are you okay? Is the family okay? Anything we can do for you? Just so you know, bowling is back and we're going to be ready when you are. It's a sincere wellness check. And I can tell you that the centers that I've visited with that have spent the time, effort, and energy to do those wellness checks, it's had an impact. It's had an impact. I mean, I think genuinely people care that someone took the time to reach out to them and not try to pressure them into coming back if they weren't ready, but just said, look, we're ready when you are. I hope everything's okay. Hope the family's well. Come back and see us. Because you're a pillar in your community. You've been there 10, 20, 30, 40 years. You know, you're second, third generation with people that are bowling with you. This is a sincere wellness check. Some are inviting the group out to practice at a time that's convenient for them, and it's discounted or no charge. This isn't about making money or generating revenue. This is about getting this group, the unsures, right, or the unsafes, or even the ones that are unplugged that don't know, to come put their foot in the water, give it a little try, and see it's okay there. One proprietor shared a story with me that said, Bart, I had my men's league, a men's league of all things. Two teams came into the league meeting, heard the rules, heard the protocols, and very politely said, we're sorry, we're not going to be able to bowl this season. And they left. And so we've got to get those groups to come back out, put their toe in the water, let them practice at the time that's convenient for them. It's not about making the register ring on this one. This is seeding for future register rings. Some groups are even inviting people out for individual tour of the center with management to see the safety protocols, doing it during the day or a slow time or before or after when groups are there, just letting them say, walking them around saying, this group needs to feel comfortable. This is not your early adapters, right? They didn't need to feel comfortable. They felt comfortable already. You may have to invest some extra effort into this group by inviting them out. I love the idea of some personal tours there. This one was interesting, and I thought it was interesting how they tried to position, because they were having a private "We Miss You" session with limited occupancy. So you're having a party without making it a party, because a party normally means a lot of people, probably not gonna make people feel comfortable, no social distancing. This is really a private showing, if you will, or a private screening, "We Miss You," and it's really promoted with some very limited occupancy. And I love that idea. Want to make sure we capture that for you. We talked about this a little bit in our league session, and folks are still doing this, and they're doing this to great degrees of success, embracing senior-only times. This really comes from the grocery store world. Kroger's and Albertsons and places are identifying limited hours where they're closed to the public for seniors and high-risk people to come in and shop to feel safe. And while it does matter and it is good, it is a lot of optics too, right? I mean, but it's just doing for that group what makes them feel safe. I love this one. League secretaries hate this one because it's a whole lot more work, and I totally understand it. But offering flex leagues, allowing someone to bowl anytime they want. If someone's not ready to be back in front of a group, they may love bowling enough that they want to participate in bowling, but they may not be ready to take that step to be there when 40, 50, 60, whatever the number is, other people are there. So being flexible, there's a lot of flex leagues going on that in this temporary environment, they can come in and bowl anytime they want within a 7-day period. That's a headache for the folks doing league record service. It's a headache for the secretary. I get it. But guess what? Being down 45, 50%, that's a migraine. That's not a headache. Short season practice leagues, we talked about that. Some short season have a ball leagues. I'm going to share with you an example that Jerry mentioned there as well. Mikey?
Yeah, so just some best practices for the associations now too, right? So we've got the data and we've seen what it's showing. It's time to put some people together, right? Put your people together, right? Bart cracked at me. He's like, Mike, you got 2 words here. I said, I don't want the people that call and say, hey, why aren't you bowling league this year? We're looking for the folks who have energy that bring a positive experience, either by phone, by email, social media posts, whatever they are. We want positive energy around the sport. And so we want our people to be the ones that are getting together as a committee, right? Call it an ad hoc committee, because we're in a different mode this year. We need new thoughts and new processes this year. So put that committee together to work on the activation. First thing for them to do after the reports have been run, give them to the centers, find out what each center plans to do. Okay, you might have some centers that are very high functioning, and they've had plans for 3 months on this, and they know what they're doing. And they might say, hey, we got it. We thank you so much for the data. We're going to take it from here. You might have some that say, we don't know what we're doing, but we're in trouble and we need some help, right? So there's different ways we can partner with it, but offer it to everybody so we can provide the same level of service to every center. There's so many different things that we can do right now with our volunteer manpower and woman power, right? And I say woman power because it's usually ladies that are probably going to help get it done. The time is now really for us in an unprecedented league season to put some extra effort in and do something unprecedented for our centers and for our bowlers. You might be thinking, well, we've never done that before. Good. Right? Now is the time to say, hey, that's what, so what, now let's go do something, right? Put the committee together, get them working on looking at the data, see what it says. Imagine if your association had 5 folks on this committee and they said, you know what, we're each going to commit to calling 5 bowlers every day for the next 2 weeks in our association, right? Depends on the size and scope of your association. We know that, hey, in Detroit, it's going to be very different than how they do things down in Austin, Texas, and how they do things in Malad City, Idaho. It's going to be different. But that's why each local group is so impactful, and they can decide together what's going to be great. But imagine getting a phone call as a non-league bowler or a non-returning bowler from an association saying, hey, just checking to see how you're doing. We noticed you didn't come back to league this year. We just wanted to find out why and hope you're doing okay, right? If it's the health and safety, hey, we understand you stay safe. We hope there's a vaccine, and we hope that you can join us for league next year. And by the way, we're going to make sure you bowl city tournament next year. All of this is a way to just be in touch with them to keep bowling top of mind, right? As Bart alluded to, the longer they don't hear from bowling, the more likely it is they don't come back to bowling. But just the touch and care that bowling will show to them, positive energy comes out of those non-returning bowlers, their thoughts and emotions when someone from bowling might call them, email them, ask how they're doing. It can be just so powerful and has a higher chance that they return if we do that. So get together, build a plan, and go activate it.
Good stuff, Mike. So the last slide that I have, and we'll do some closing thoughts, get some questions, wrap up, is just want to make sure that all of you on this call are aware of Go Bowling America, and even our association friends. I want to make sure you're aware of it as well. And full disclosure, I first passed the presentation, I didn't have this in. I didn't want someone to think that we were trying to sell anything. It wasn't what it's about. But as we were doing the interviews with proprietors, one of the things that they made clear was, even the progressive ones that had resources and marketing departments and things of that nature said, if you could give us a turnkey program, we are busy, we don't have time, and don't have resources, and quite candidly, don't have funds to be able to develop creative for a program. Can you help? I thought, you know what, we better put this back in because people need to know about it. And Jerry, you mentioned it in your question there, and I'm glad you're trying to get some of those programs going. But for all of you, just very quickly, the 60-second elevator pitch on this, and if you want to know more, we'll share it with you. Go Bowling America is a have-a-ball program. It's designed to reintroduce or get folks that were on the fence or on the sideline to come back to bowling. Now, a have-a-ball program is nothing new. So you may be saying, wow, Bart, you came up with a have-a-ball program. Wow, that's earth-shattering. You know, the program is not new, but what is new is how this was put together by our league development committee, because the control of the program is all up to you. So there are 3 sets of creative that have been developed for your target market. You can target young adults, you can target families, You can target youth. So you've got 3 different sets of creative. Everything's been developed for you that you can use to market the program, right? The second part is normally when we do a have a ball program, like an 8 for 8 or a 10 for 10 or 12 for 12, I mean, those are cookie cutter programs that are very good, but you have to run it for 8 weeks at $8 and use, you know, this ball. You know, this is much different. You get to set the number of weeks, you get to set the cost, and you decide the format, all of it. It's all up to you. All we're doing is providing the brand and some marketing material for you to do what's going to work for you. And then the last thing I would mention on this that I think is really critical is the ball. Typically, when we do an 8 for 8 or a have a ball type program, it's for a entry-level plastic ball. You're getting that non-bowler. You just want 3 holes that somewhat fit. You know, you want to get them in a ball, get them hooked on the sport, and hopefully they'll migrate up to a higher end ball at some point in time. We've partnered with Brunswick. We partnered with Classic. This is the Brunswick Twist, which is a reactive bowling ball. It's a $99 value if you were to go in the pro shop and buy one. So this would really appeal to league bowlers as well. It's not going to be your high performance, but I would tell you most of those high performance folks, they're already back, right? They're your early adapters. Those other folks, I believe, that are in those other 3 categories Mike mentioned, probably would resonate and benefit from a ball like this. So you can choose the ball, and you're getting the ball landed cost to you, the proprietor, for only $39.99. Now, look, if you do the math on a $40 ball, including shipping, with the cost of shipping these days, and knowing that, you know, what the wholesale cost is if you're buying it from a distributor, it doesn't take long to figure out that somewhere somebody's taking a haircut on this. And as the industry, we're helping subsidize this. So every ball that's used in this program, the industry is actually subsidizing that cost to help get people back to bowling. So this is a limited offer. We can't subsidize balls forever, but you know, I'd encourage you to take a peek at it, find out more information if you're interested. Not because we want to sell you anything, or but because we want to provide you a solution. And you've told us you need a solution. You need a turnkey solution. Jerry mentioned he's getting up and going. We've had some early success in Florida, North Carolina. I know Paul's involved with it. I think Paul was on earlier. I just got an email before I was coming down to the studio here to connect with Mike and get ready. Tim Voss in Ohio just started a 10x4, 40 new bowlers in this program. And he was disappointed. He thought he was going to get like 48. But he got 40 new fall league bowlers to help cut into that deficit, you know, of where he was there. So the program works. The program works because you've got a $100 bowling ball you can put in someone's hand for a very economical price, and you can structure it to the length, the season, the weeks, the format that you want. So enough on that. But I hope that you'll get more information on that if it's something you're not already engaged with in doing there. So I'll kick off our closing thoughts and we'll answer some questions, let you get back to your busy evening there. First and foremost, identifying those non-returning fall league guests quickly is critical. Quickly is the key word. Partner with your association, local association, partner with your center. If they're not asking for the report, give it. Centers, if they're not giving the report, ask for it. Quickly is key on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, working together to generate these reports. If the center's got BLS already, they've got their own CRM, perfect. But and if you've been providing that report traditionally by paper, you've dropped it off at the center every year, this is the time to email it to them, because this way it's utilized and is functional right away.
Yeah, and again, centers, local associations, we need you to work together to communicate with this group. It's a partnership, really. It's a partnership to communicate with this group.
Yeah, centers having that strategy to reactivate this group. You know, Bart mentioned the program that they have with Go Bowl America, but there's other ones out there too. Finding areas where you now have open lanes and trying to find new ways to get some short season programs in is going to be huge. Mary Ellen from El Paso yesterday brought up they're running a lot of 8-week league seasons. You can plug in these short season leagues to get us through the fall.
And associations, we love you. We need you. Here's your chance to provide some next level service here. If ever there was a time, you know, as proprietors, operators, people that are responsible, it's in the middle of this pandemic. We need you. We need the data, and we need you to help us secure it quickly, timely, and partner with us where you can to communicate and reach those folks, because it is something that is unprecedented that we are going through. But the good news is, you know, we have some tools and we have some resources to help get through it there. So Before Mike and I sign off, I want to make sure that Kelly, if we have any questions, we'll take some last questions, and we'll certainly let everybody get back to your day there.
Looks like we have one here from Fred. Don't see his video here, but we do. We have his picture. Let's see.
I'm trying to get it on.
There, okay. But go ahead and ask your question while it's working there, Fred. Go ahead and ask your question.
All right. On the postcard, guys, will you be sending out instructions on using those postcards? Because it's very important that the proprietor knows where to put the address and the barcode and the indicia. Just taking it to a local print shop and asking them to print this thing up, and they're gonna write in the names or put labels on them, is gonna be a disaster. They have to have barcodes on those postcards. So I just think that please send out instructions on how to use those. The local post office can give that to you guys, but they can blow it and it'll end up costing them $1 for the postcard and it'll come back. So I just wanted to mention that.
Nope, that's a great ad, Fred, and thank you. It's a whole different discussion. I don't want to go there, 'cause Mike's a much younger than I am. There's a whole generation of people that don't even know how to address a postcard. They've never sent a postcard in their life. So we'll make sure that we have the tools for folks that, Fred, that don't have a few sunsets on. It's like you and I. That's a great ad there. So Kelly, it looks like that is all of our questions there.
That is
So,
correct.
Mike, any parting thoughts?
Yeah, just thank you to all our centers, our associations, our league officers out there, our bowlers. Thank you to everybody who's supports the sport, passionate for it. Thank you so much for all the health and safety measures you've taken in your centers already, that you're taking in the future, your communication efforts, your collaboration. Bowling wouldn't be bowling without all of you. And so we hope that there's been some helpful ideas here for you, and we hope that you take it to heart with the ideas and the suggestions provided, and that we work together to provide a better avenue and communicate with our bowlers over the coming months.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. So I want to thank USBC for their partnership in this. Thank Mike for his efforts. Mike is one of the hardest working guys here at the campus, making things happen. I love having fun with him. I want to clear the air. I feel bad because I called him Mike Drop. The truth is his real name on the sheet is Dog. That's what he goes by. It's his kind of his rapping name. So I want to make I feel bad that I misled you folks on that.
You feel so bad.
So anyway, I know there's been a lot of questions. I saw Kelly did a great job. We are recording this session. We're going to make it available. We'll also make the presentation available on there. We thank you for your partnership. We'll support you in any way we can. We wish you well and stay safe.